The Smart Little Mouse. This is a 1950 classic. This book is very fragile, so we're going to read it very carefully. In a snug little hole in an old oak tree, there once lived a smart little mouse. The pretty little smart little mouse played all day long. He ran up and down the old oak tree, playing tag with a cute gray squirrel and a funny little bunny who were his very best friends. The only days they couldn't play were those where it rained too hard, or when the big red fox came through the woods. The big red fox was a mean old fox, and they often heard him mutter, "I'm hungry. I wish I had a smart little mouse, or a cute gray squirrel, or a funny little bunny to eat." When the big red fox was around, the three good friends would always run and hide until he was gone. Then they would come out for the rest of the day. At night, the smart little mouse would always crawl into the hole in the big oak tree and fall fast asleep. The cute gray squirrel lived higher up in the same oak tree, and he would do the same. The little funny bunny lived lower in the same oak tree too, and he would do the same. One morning, the smart little mouse woke up and looked out of the old oak tree. The sun was shining brightly, and he knew he had overslept. He wondered if his friends had done the same. The smart little mouse looked up and called, cute gray squirrel, come out and play." There was no answer. Funny little bunny, come out and play." But there was no answer. Up to the top of the tree, where the cute gray squirrel lived, ran the little smart mouse. But there was no one there. Down to the bottom of the tree, where the funny little bunny lived, he ran. But there was no one there either. He thought his friends may have gone out to play, but he called and no one answered. The smart little mouse was sitting and wondering what had become of them when a blue jay flew by. Get back in the old oak tree, little mouse," said the jay. "The big red fox is coming." The smart little mouse scampered quickly into the funny little bunny's empty nest. Then he looked out. Sure enough, the big red fox was coming through the woods. Over his shoulder he carried a sack, and there was something in the sack. It bulged and wiggled and called out in a muffled voice, "Help, help, let me out." It sounded like the cute gray squirrel. Something else called out in a muffled voice, "Help, help, let me out." It sounded like the funny little bunny. The big red fox was muttering, "Ha! I have the cute gray squirrel and the little funny bunny. All I need to complete the meal is the smart little mouse for dessert." Just now I think I heard him calling. When the big red fox looked into the old oak tree, he didn't look in the funny little bunny's nest because he knew that the smart little mouse lived higher up. He stretched and looked in the hole where the smart little mouse lived. "Huh?" said the big red fox. "He's gone. There is no smart little mouse here." All this while, the smart little mouse had been thinking. He knew he had to do something to save his good friend. Suddenly, he had an idea. As the big red fox turned to go, his bushy tail brushed past the funny little bunny's nest, where the smart little mouse was hiding. Quick as a flash, the smart little mouse jumped onto the big red fox's tail and hid in the long white fur at the tip. When the big red fox went on through the woods, the smart little mouse crept slowly through his bushy tail. He crept until he was up on the fox's back. Suddenly, the big red fox stopped and growled, "Something is tickling me." The smart little mouse trembled and held his breath, for he was sure that now the big red fox would find them. Scratch, scratch. The big red fox scratched hard at the spot where the little smart mouse was sitting. Meanwhile, the smart little mouse was searching along the seam at the edge of the sack. Finally, he had found what he was looking for. A loose thread hung from the seam. It was the thread that held the sack together. The smart little mouse tugged carefully at the loose thread, and slowly the sack began to open up. Out popped the cute gray squirrel's head. The sack opened a bit more. Out popped the funny little bunny's head. "Shh," whispered the smart little mouse. "We have work to do. Don't jump down just yet. We must frighten the fox so he'll never bother us again." Looking very scared, the cute gray squirrel whispered, "But what can we do?" The funny little bunny looked very, very scared and whispered, "Yes, what can we do?" "Shh," said the smart little mouse. "Each of you must take one corner of the open sack. When I give the word, you must both jump over the big red fox's head. I will tie the sack over his head, and he won't know where he is going." The smart little mouse and the cute gray squirrel and the funny little bunny all smiled quietly at one another. This was a wonderful plan. At the word, go! The cute gray squirrel and the funny little bunny both jumped, holding tight to the corners of the sack. Over the big red fox's head they went, and the smart little mouse quickly scurried around to tie the sack under the fox's neck. Then they all jumped into the grass and shook hands all around. Grrr! Roared the big red fox in a muffled voice. Who are you? Where am I? He became so frightened that he began to run around and around in circles until, crash, he ran right into a tree. Oh, my poor head, cried the fox. Oh, help! Let me out! But the smart little mouse and the cute gray squirrel and the funny little bunny did not move. They just sat quietly and smiled at each other. The big red fox had to feel his way through the forest because he could not see where he was going. He had to go slowly for fear of crashing into another tree. In fact, it was not until the next day that he met another fox who helped him out of the sack and showed him the way out of the woods. Never again did the big red fox to the old oak tree. He warned all the other red foxes too. Stay out of the woods, he told them. Too dangerous. Every morning now, the smart little mouse pokes his head out of his hole in the old oak tree and wiggles his wiggly pink nose. First he looks up to the top of the tree and calls, "Cute gray squirrel, come on and play." And out pops the cute gray squirrel. Then he looks down to the bottom of the tree and calls, "Funny little bunny, come out and play." And out pops the funny little bunny. The three good friends play all day long. They play tag and hide and go seek. Almost never do they have to stay in, except some of those days when it rains too hard. The Smart Little Mouse.